Listen, man, we up right now. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about in regards to the release of the new Fate Samurai Remnant game that's on the way. It is an RPG. It's one of those Muso hack and slash games. If you're into that, it's a lot like Extella, and it's gonna be coming out on the PS5, PS4, Nintendo Switch, and Steam. For the developers, it's gonna be Omega Force. They're the guys that did Dynasty Warriors, Samurai Warriors. They worked on Attack on Titan. They've done some Dragon Quest. All of these series, very reputable. So it's safe to say that the game itself is in good hands. It's looking like the release date is set up for the 28th of September for Japan, and then the day after that on the 29th is when it'll go worldwide. Now, they released a trailer for this the other day. I was able to catch it, and it turns out that the trailer wasn't supposed to be out yet. So they tried to hurry up and take it down and throw up a different one under Nintendo. But by that point, everybody had seen it, so it really didn't matter. So now the original is back up again, and it looks really good, especially on the second half, music and all. But yeah, apparently the trailer got leaked, that guy's getting fired, and we got to see a bunch of things that weren't really uncovered the first time around. We got a lot of new servants, a lot of new masters, we got some returning servants, and some people that might tie into some older works. We have to just wait and see. Really hype time right now. There's so much going on. I got so many people to cover right now. You got Ordeal servants coming out, you got Avalon servants coming out, and then we got this. So they got me busy right now. As far as the story goes, it does take place in the 1600s, 1651 to be exact, and it's the Keion period. So this is about 100 years after Oda Nobunaga's time, when they were trying to unify Japan and everybody was going back and forth. So it's highly likely that we're going to see more people out of that era, and a couple of wild cards as well. And it's going to be starring my girl Musashi. Read it and weep. I'm just drinking the tears up from all the haters right now. Why does it have to be Musashi? Why couldn't it be Sasuke? Eat it up. I do kind of want to see Sasuke, I'm not gonna lie, especially with the video that I just made covering the fact that we still need to see the real version of both of them in action. But it's nice that we're getting more of her regardless. So yeah, she's gonna be one of the stars of the show. And then the main character is Iori Miyamoto. He's a guy that's been adopted. He actually was adopted and became an apprentice of the real Musashi. And if you look at the way that he acts, his demeanor, even in the trailer, he seems a lot different from the casual MC that we get in the Type Moon franchise. It seems like he wants to fight. You know, usually when we get an MC in Type Moon, they're kind of just thrown into the mix and they just deal with it. And then they get more accustomed to it along the way. But this guy, he's already got sword skills. He's going in. He seems like he's ready to throw down. So for this Grail War, at least as far as what they're leading on, it is gonna be the conventional 7 servants. We know that's probably gonna change. It's called the Waxing Moon Grail War. So there's likely gonna be some type of fixation with the moon, as we do always with Type Moon, the moon cell, the far side of the moon. We always get moon concepts. This one is no different. I really hope that they lean into that and make it for a more interesting part of the story. Now for Iori, looking at the site and looking at the description of his character, it's interesting because it says that he studied the Niten Ichiryu style, which is the 2-sword style that Musashi used in his lifetime, but Musashi passed away before he was able to fully teach him all of the arts of his blade. So he still has a lot to learn himself, and I believe that's where our version of Musashi may come in. His thoughts on the war itself is that a lot of people may lose their lives, and he can't allow that to happen. The story takes place in the district of Asakusa. It's also right off the back of the Shimabara Rebellion, but we'll get into that later. The thing about Iori's lifestyle is that he's a Ronin, so you know he's a wandering samurai, so he's kind of just been doing what he can to get by for the past years, and it shows us that he ends up summoning a saber. Now this is interesting for the saber. It seems like this character, a lot of people aren't sure what's the sex of this servant. Sounds like a girl to me, but that's something that's still yet to get revealed. But the thing about his servant The moment that they get summoned, her description is calling Iori weak, saying that what, your sword is the only abilities that you have? You gotta do better. So immediately we got a little banter back and forth between servant and the master. It seems like this saber is gonna be the type of person to give their master a little pushback, which is always good for the development of the main character. We see how that turned out with Waver. So from what we have so far, it appears as while the city is getting invaded, Iori is trying to brute force it. He's kind of just doing the best he can, and that's kind of what ends up getting him in a lot of trouble, and the saber comes out to save him. As a matter of fact, I think the implication that the saber is making kind of goes back into Iori's incomplete training under Musashi. It kind of alludes to that mental aspect of his sword fighting style, may be the part that he still needs to touch up on, and it shows. I also believe that the sword may have been something that was bestowed to him, and that could possibly be the catalyst for the saber itself, and that's why they came out with the summon. But it does say that Iori is still very intentional about mastering his art. The next team is a bit of a curveball, and I know a lot of people were talking about this, and for some reason Jalter is present in this era. Now there's a lot of things that have been spun around, but as somebody that likes Jalter and just Joan in general, I have no problems with this, but it definitely is strange. I remember watching the trailer and I was like, Jalter? Why is Jalter there? And you know, it comes to a point where it's like, I'm sure it's gonna be explained, but it does feel like her taking a part in this war feels a bit misleading. She has a little purple gradient going on her cloak in comparison to how her original outfit was, and she seems like she's on the same type of timing as her master. And surprisingly, she's in the Lancer class. Now there's not really anything about Joan being a Lancer, but per Orleans, Jalter is kind of her own thing. I mean, there is the flagpole if you want to reach, but that's not really a lance, but close enough. Close enough. And it says that she wields 2 spears. So on top of being a lancer, she's coming out here like Diarmu. She's got both spears on deck. And looking at her description, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, everything will be consumed by the flames. It does seem like it's going with her original outlook on things, the way that we first met her before things like Shinjuku and whatnot. While I am excited to have Jalter, and I still got the video up now, Jalter is the first servant that I went broke for and didn't get. So I've been on the Jalter wave since, what was that, 2018 when she came out, NA wise. It does seem like her positioning in this era is so out of place that this might be a red herring. I know the more that I look at her, and I was saying this yesterday, it feels like it may be somebody else masquerading as Jalter. But at the same time, if you were to tease the fandom of Jalter on this level and not actually give it to the fandom, they would be so mad. So I highly doubt that that's the case, even though it would make a lot of sense. I'm already seeing people bring out her Berserker class to justify her reason to be in the story. You know, her summer class had swords, multiple of them at that. She's not new to this, she's true to this. Hilarious. As far as her master goes, really like his design as well. You can see that he's wearing the blooded up outfit. It's telling us that he's a survivor of the Shimabara rebellion. Again, that's the rebellion that was led by Amakusa, the one where he watched all those people get their lives ended by the Tokugawa shogunate, brutally, mercilessly, and that's what led Amakusa into doing the things that he did in Apocrypha. He wanted to set things right, or as we saw, find the most extremist way for that to never happen again. So this guy is from that same rebellion, and he made it out, and you can see that in his design. And one of the first things I noticed is the wraps around his face. Now, if he's a survivor, there was a lot going on. He more than likely has the entire side of his face burned if they're going lore wise with it, or he may have it carved up. He may have taken an arrow to the face. They were doing whatever they possibly could to get those people out of that castle. The guy's name is Chiemon, and he says that he's on the same wave as Jalter. He wants everything burn with his own two hands. It's only natural. I mean, anybody coming out of that situation is gonna bear a grudge, and a huge one. The first thing that I thought when I saw his design was Angra. As crazy as that sounds, I just can't look at the bandage design wrapped around the face and not think of Angra, especially when we're already talking about fate. And it tells us that he has nothing in his possession. He's got nothing on him. All he has is the clothes on his back. And then we got the picture of him standing side by side next to Jalter. I also noticed that looking at the picture, Jalter usually is a lot more passionate. Like even when she was on the evil outlook, she was very dramatic about things. And if you look at her face in the picture, she kind of seems like she doesn't care. Now that may be just the way that her model is looking for the photo, but it seems that she's real disinterested in the face. And even when she's doing her attack in the other photo, she looks exactly the same. That same disinterested look in her face, which as we know, that's not how Jalter acted at all. For the next duo, we got the rider. We got Yui, and then we got this huge tank, and this is easily one of my favorite designs that I've seen in this so far. We got a servant in the rider class, and this dude looks incredible. All black with the huge shoulder guards and the light blue trim. Feathers coming off the shoulders. This man looks like he's ready for carnage, and his description says the same. It never fails. It seems like every time there's a huge guy, they always try to pair him with the smallest girl they can find. This is like Ilya and Heracles all over again. So for a bit about Yui, it tells us that taking the life of somebody that's unaware that they're a master goes against her code. It goes against what she stands for. And I'm sure she's talking about Iori. So we know that her and Iori are more than likely gonna see eye to eye, at least for a certain amount of time. This may end up being one of our allies. She is a gender bend. It tells us that she's a military scholar and she's really good at fighting, not just physically, but tactic wise as well. She actually runs her own military academy, and right before the Grail War started, she decided to serve under the shogunate. There was some stipulations to that, but it doesn't really tell us what that is. I'm digging the design, and as you can see, she does have two blades. She is not afraid to use it. Don't be fooled by the appearance. For the next pair, we have Team Secret. We got a silhouette. It appears by the design, and just looking at how they're built, it does seem like a female. They're in the caster class, and then we have their master, who as we can see has these really nice robes on. He has his face covered with these designs on the cloth. Actually looks really sick, reminds me of Alcides a little bit. And everything about him is blocked out. Everything about the caster is blocked out, and we can see that he's taking part in a ritual. He's likely the one that started the whole thing, or at least played a hand in it. The first thing that I'm noticing, I just can't get over it, is his hands. If you look at his hands, they're half black and they're half white. So you know what I'm thinking, is this Doman? Is this a different variation of Doman? Because I feel like he has some unsettled ties, and also a different part of his character that we've yet to go down. You know, he was the one that took hand in the ritual in Shimosa. He's half the reason why everything in that chapter went down. And if you look at the picture, it seems like he's on the same type of wave, especially this huge star in the front. It does seem like black magic. And then here we have the caster again. I want to do a little inspection on that symbol that's on the back of her robes. I feel like that would be something that would tell us a lot. It looks like a flat lotus flower, like one of the chakra lotuses. I'll more than likely just throw one up on the screen so you can see what I'm talking about. Moving on to the next pair, we got Dorothea. Now the first thing that I thought when I saw Dorothea, you know, I was sitting and then I see that name, I'm like, Dorothea, and I raised all the way up. I'm like, Dorothea who? If you guys haven't been keeping up on Strange Fate, the guy that's the crazy apostle that's going head up with Hansa, the thing about his lore is that he was originally a female and her name was Dorothea. That's why I couldn't help but be shook. She's already said that she's a mage with good standing in the clock tower, and it also tells us that she comes from nobility. I'm like, there's no way they snuck that in. Man, I really hope that's her. But the more I got to looking at her description, it says that she's Swedish. Now, it's not stated exactly where Jester comes from, but we do have a flashback later on in Strange Fate where it kind of brings it back to his homeland. And the way that it's described, it didn't sound like Sweden. So that kind of has me up in the air with that. But at the same time, as I look at her design and these wicked looking designs going down both her legs, kind of just adds fuel to the fire. I really hope that is her, because that would be crazy. And we also don't have an age on Jester. We just know that Jester's been around for a really long time. Strange Fate takes place around 2009, so that would already be about 350 years. And that's just the part that we see. But yeah, it says that she's the daughter of a Swedish nobleman, that being Frederick Koyek, and she actually came there by ship. Really standard. Really love her fit here. I will say that all these designs look way better on paper as comparison to the game, but there are some really good designs here. And then she's the master of assassin. It appears that it's a male, but it also appears that it's not even human. I can't tell if I'm seeing tentacles or horns. Can you see its fingers? His fingers look like they belong on Predator. This man out here looking like Yoshimitsu. Nah, we gotta get some more information on this. Everything about him is blocked out though. We got the close-up of Dorothea. Again, looks really dope. The scheme, the color scheme that they're going for looks a lot like Abigail's original fit. You know, she had the navy and the orange going, and you know what she dealt with. So that may also be alluding to something else. Next pair, we got my girl Musashi, our version of Musashi, that is. It does seem like they're gonna extend a little bit more into the OG Musashi's background. I really would like to see that. And again, if they could throw Sasuke in there, that would be fire too. But it seems like this story itself is on a completely different path. And it even says in her description that even though she has the same identity as Iori's teacher, she's not the one that taught Iori. I already want to know what their interactions are going to be like. Really love her fit. I don't even know if that's saying much. Musashi looks good in pretty much everything she wears. And then on top of that, she gets some of the best fits there is. I mean, look at her summer form in the game. She's killing it. She's got the dragon up front, all white, looking angelic. And then we got Musashi's master, Takao Dayu. She is in fact actually a woman. She's a high-level prostitute. Her name isn't Dayu, that's actually her rank. She's actually the highest ranked prostitute that you can be, which means that she has more value than the other ones. It tells us she's one of the 3 most popular Dayu of her era, and she's the most beautiful woman in Edo. She's attracting men from all over, including the feudal lords. Looking at her description, she is not afraid to see somebody perish, and I mean, being in a brothel, I'm sure she's seen it a number of times before, and considering all the underhanded things that go on in there, she's probably seen dudes get murked right in front of her face. What I'm looking at mainly is this pairing. This may be the most unusual pairing so far. I couldn't imagine what a mistress would want with Musashi other than trying to appease to the person that's over her. So I really would like to see that origin story for the both of them. But she does at least look like a decent person. And I'm sure that will come back and be the bitterness of everybody that has to deal with her. Getting off into their pictures, she's got a whole bodyguard. I believe that this is He-Man. And then you can see her staring off into the distance. Then you got the cherry blossoms in the background. Again, she's kind of making the same face. You can't really gauge anything from it. Like, I don't sense any malice. But if she is a mistress, then that's kind of the point. And then there's Musashi. Really like what they're doing with her eyes here. She's rocking a completely different outfit. Musashi has so many new outfits. There's another one that comes in as DLC if you pre-order the game, and it looks a lot like her original. It's hard. Okay, here we got a Gossawara. Seems to appear a bit young, but you know, looks can be deceiving. She's rocking a kimono herself, and she also mentions that her spirit origin is messed up, but she does have blades even though she's not showing them in the picture. So the fact that she mentioned a spirit origin lets us know that she is at least some type of spirit. I won't go as far to say that she's a servant. She might be a wraith like Sasuke. It could be a number of things going on. Looking further into it, she's actually the stepsister of Iori, and she also was adopted by Musashi Miyamoto. And the very fact that she mentioned the sword also means that she's had some training under Musashi, just like Iori. Next one, we got the Crimson Codex, and it says that this is a spell book that belonged to Musashi, and it was actually pitched off to Iori after his passing. It has a will of its own, it floats in the air, and it talks just like a person. It is the one that teaches Iori magecraft, and it also says that it's the self-proclaimed substitute for Musashi after his death. This is super interesting because that tells us that it recognizes the OG Musashi as an actual magecraft user, or at least he's familiar with it. That's a huge extension from the lore that we had back in Shimosa. Without that description, I would have thought this was part of the reason why this all started, but apparently this is a good guy. The book itself says the bonds that you make are to be cherished, including the ones that you have with me. That would be some fire development. I wonder if it's gonna come to a point where Iori is gonna hit a brick wall with his swordsmanship and he's gonna have to get real into magecraft, or at least use magecraft to further his sword skills. I do recall in the trailer that there was some mage arts going on. The way the game is set up is that you build your bond with your servant and y'all fight alongside each other. So it's a duo venture, and you would see like Iori do an attack and then Saber would do an attack and then they do an attack together. I really like the way that they got it set up. We got Ching Gong, who is also a master. No, not that Ching Gong. So for this guy, he's actually a general, highly respected by the Longwu Emperor of the Ming Dynasty. His father is a Ming merchant and he has a Japanese mother. So he does come from a modest background. His character itself looks the same way. This seems like somebody that we could rely on. And even with the things that he's saying, the cruel who lack compassion are not human. I do not want the innocent to die. I feel like this is going to be another one of our allies that's trying to go against the people that are invading the city. And then if you look at the silhouette for his servant, he's rolling with the archer. You know, archer is knight class, so they tend to be on the stronger side, especially somebody coming out of this era. I'm hoping that they summon somebody really good. By the silhouette, it looks like a female. She does look on the shorter side, and it looks like she's wearing some robes, and you can kind of see her ankle down here at the bottom. There was even an undocumented servant that I caught in the freeze frame. She had a bow and arrow. That's probably who that was. But yeah, I really like Ching Gong's fit. That's an interesting colorway. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen this color pattern before. It's like a deep orange mixed with sea green, and then you got some brown in there too. In the game, it looks a lot more red though, and that could just be my screen. I'm not gonna lie, in this picture, he looks a lot more suspect. And why is his nose so pointy? This dude look like a hammerhead shark. Oh my goodness. It seems like he's surrounded in a pool of blood, and I don't know if that's something that he's summoning or something that he's trying to disperse, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good at all, but I got faith in him. Yeah, so that's everybody. I just wanted to get in on it. I'm super excited about it. I will admit that when I first saw the game, like months ago, when they did the first announcement, I did have my qualms about it because I'm not the type of person to jump onto things too quick because it be feeling like a cash grab. And then I saw that they threw Musashi on the cover. I'm like, oh, please don't use my girl for money. But it actually seems like they're putting some backbone into this. And to double down on that point, the writers for this is actually Higashide and Sakurai. Higashide wrote Apocrypha, and then Sakurai did Prototype Fragments and Lost on Harryar, which is still being serialized. And then of course they got works all over Type Moon. They're in Extella, they're in FGO, they're everywhere. It seems like Nasu really trusts them as writers. That's why he keeps them around. And I will say that they can get in their bag too, even though they get a lot of flack for their work. It's crazy to think that it's already been 10 years since both Fragments and Apocrypha came out. And I know a lot of people want to jump down their throats for the way that they frame things in the past, but they've had 10 years to get better. So I really want to see what they're going to do together here. It shows a lot of promise, and they may be able to use that to their advantage and have one person make up the difference where the other person is lacking, and then everything else can come out a little more balanced.